I would now like to introduce you to Indigenous Health Minister Warren Snowdon. Warren is a member of the Lingari. Warren is also Minister of the Veteran Affairs and Minister for Defence Science Personnel. He is speaking to you today on behalf of the Australian Government. I'd now like to welcome Minister Snowdon to the stage.
Driving down the dusty road, four-wheel drive, locked all the way.
Well, can I say good afternoon to everyone? Can I firstly acknowledge the Larrakia, the traditional owners of this wonderful part of the world. Thank Mrs. Kenyon for her lovely welcome. To John, thank you. And it just seems like yesterday, John. We knew each other in a previous existence. A good relationship. Can I acknowledge our co-chairs, but can I also acknowledge Alison Anderson, Northern Territory Government Minister for Regional Development. Can I acknowledge all of the Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are here, from whichever country you are from. Can I know how proud you are being here representing your country. And I know in the audience, I've spoken to a few people this afternoon who I've known for many, many years. And it's a great honour to be here representing the Australian Government at this event. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. To our international visitors, from wherever you're from, know that you are most welcome. Know that the Larrakia have extended their welcome to you, as have other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from across this country. But so do we. So does the Australian Government. And I hope that you go away from here not only with knowledge, but with an awareness of this great nation of ours, but knowing that you go back, you come as friends and you go as friends. And that really, to me, is most important. Jeski indicated that I was from my electorate, my constituency, part of the Australia that I represent in the Federal Parliament is called Lingiari. Now, this is not in my speech, but I think it is really relevant because Vincent Lingiari was a champion for land rights. And it was because of the work of people like Vincent and those who are responsible for the Bark Petition at Gove, the 50th anniversary this year, that in the Northern Territory, here in the Northern Territory, we have the Aboriginal Land Rights Act, which is the first act of the federal government, that is the government in Canberra, to recognise Aboriginal ownership of land. It's very important because these leaders, if they were here today, they would look at you and say it's all been worthwhile. We've won the land. Now we've got the responsibility to look after it for future generations. And to me, that's what this is about. I first had the great honour to work and live with Aboriginal people, some of whom are in the audience here, the Anangu Pitjantjatjara people, the Pitjantjatjara Yangatjarra people, representatives who are here, in the late 1970s, in the northwest of South Australia. And for those of you who don't know, it's, well, I can't tell you because I haven't got a map, but it's a big part of Australia. And these wonderful people, some of whom are my family, showed me their country and showed me the importance of looking after that country, not only for getting food, but looking after it for cultural reasons. They're sacred places. And if we move on now 34 years, There is no longer a question as to why that's important. And today, as we heard earlier, today is National Sorry Day and the beginning of National Reconciliation Week in this country. Yesterday, I was in Melbourne for the long walk, and today there are events in Melbourne to mark the beginning of this great week. But it's an opportunity for us to all contemplate our relatively recent history, not only about the stolen generations, but also about the great successes that have been won as a result, as Tony has pointed out, of the great leadership of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people around our great country. It's no accident that we're here today. It is no accident. We are here because now generations of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have fought for their rights and fought to be recognised and fought to understand, to have us understand the need to look after country. So I'm extremely honoured to be here representing the federal government. Over the next 4 days, you will discuss how to build a meaningful and enduring World Indigenous network, a network that will connect Indigenous peoples and communities to the world and indeed across the world, sharing your skills and knowledge of land, sea and cultural and heritage management. In advance, I'd like to thank all of those people who are responsible for the organisation of this wonderful event, the Minister's Department and all the staff, to all the speakers, many who have travelled great distances, as you know, from across this great continent of ours and across the world. And as has been pointed out, we've now got people from over 60 nations represented here. And many more will be watching proceedings online and contributing their thoughts through consultations, scoping paper. Land, sea and cultural heritage managers, as we know, help deliver best practice sustainable natural resource management on the ground. Yet a generation ago, that would not have been acknowledged or properly recognised. It would not have been, certainly in this country. But it's now recognised as a bedrock foundation of knowledge that is crucial to maintaining this earth, its peoples and environments. And over the next few days, I'm sure there'll be much debate, and you will discuss how things should move forward and what a World Indigenous Network might actually mean in reality. You will help deliver an international framework to communicate with your colleagues around the world. This is the starting point to better sharing land management knowledge and skills that will benefit generations to come. There are, and I'd like to acknowledge, the three main aims of the network as they've been described: to better conserve the world's biodiversity and the sustainable use of our natural resources, to improve social cohesion in communities, and to increase economic opportunities and alleviate poverty. Now, I know you've been talking about this for many years, most of you, but this network represents a real shift in the way we have this conversation. Perhaps, just perhaps, it will become the means to discover more innovative solutions. I'm certain it will. Like my friend and colleague Tony Burke, who you've just heard, he understands this, and that's why we've supported the establishment of an international network of Indigenous land and sea managers. So I'm proud, as Tony's acknowledged, that this initiative has been driven from here, and Wayne Bergman, who you'll hear from shortly, that it seems to have been his gem of an idea. Our rangers in the Australian Government's Indigenous Ranger program, working on country, are part of its past and part of its future. It will continue to be a network driven by Indigenous people, but one which delivers for all people and the environment. That's why we have been so proud in the Australian Government to have strongly supported the development of such a network. We've heard from Tony, and we've heard that our Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, at the Rio +20 in June last year, from them our support is strong. One objective of the network is to foster engagement and share better practices between land and sea managers through on-ground exchanges. The Australian Government has supported a number of pilot exchanges in the lead up to this WIN conference. In October 2012, representatives from the Kimberley and Central Land Councils travelled to Canada. There they met with Canada's First Nations and Inuit leaders. And in April of this year, a group of land and sea managers from the islands of the Torres Strait met with their counterparts from the Solomon Islands, in the Solomon Islands. 4 other exchanges occurred in the week leading up to the WIN conference. Participants in these exchanges included Indigenous people from Mexico, North America, the Solomon Islands, North Africa, Africa and New Zealand. In Australia, they've been hosted by the Kimberley Land Council, the Torres Strait Regional Authority, the Yalata Community and Kakadu National Park. And I'm very pleased to hear that exchange participants will present their experiences at the conference on Tuesday, showcasing how exchanges can be used to strengthen global relationships among land and sea managers and providing a framework for future exchanges. Here we value the experience and perspective of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in protecting, enhancing the Australian environment, heritage and culture. Sadly, it was not always so. But today we do, and we recognise and support your aspirations to maintain, protect and manage culture, land, language, sea and country. We proudly support your important work, not only because it protects the environment and our heritage, but it does have a significant impact on improving and contributing to closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians in terms of life expectancy and a whole range of other measures. Programs like Working on Country and Indigenous Protected Areas, funded through Caring for Our Country, provide employment for rangers and land managers. These jobs are often in remote areas of our country where there aren't many other employment opportunities. Since 2008, around 700 land management positions have been filled across Australia, funded by Working on Country. And that's magnificent recognition, over 280 of them here in the Northern Territory. Now I travel around the Northern Territory often. Lingiari, my electorate, is all of the Northern Territory but the city in which we are today and Palmerston, but the water out the front is part of my electorate, and my electorate's 1.34 million square kilometres, twice the size of Turkey. Not that that's relevant, but it's a big place. It's people inhabited by Aboriginal people in their communities, on their country. So I'm very proud to be representing them in the Federal Parliament. And so, just because I do what I do, I need to interact, and I do interact with these range of programs and applaud the magnificent work that is being done, such as the Watercan Rangers in Western Arnhem Land in bushfire abatement. They partner in this work with energy giant ConocoPhillips. Rangers do cool burns in a traditional patchwork manner. This limits the impact of the much more greenhouse gas intensive and very hot burns of the late dry season. This cannot be performed as effectively by anyone other than resident remote Indigenous rangers. And I don't think, up until the Watercan Rangers and the other rangers system started, that people across the general community really understood the depth of knowledge and understanding of country that Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people in this great nation of ours have. Outside groups just wouldn't be able to do this work or maintain the passion for it that ranger groups show. Groups like the Jelk Rangers in Central Arnhem Land, the Sea Rangers of Burralula, the Tamara Rangers of Wadeye, I was in Wadair last week, met the Tamara Rangers with cadet rangers. The nature of their work has changed significantly, proudly patrolling the waters around their country. And we've heard, and we will hear later on, about Dimaroo land management, the Martha Carl and the Crocodile Ranger Group of Milingimbi, the Central Australian Ranger Groups, and those many, many more across this country of ours. The cultural knowledge of country, land and sea are crucial to their work. And I was impressed by the fact that we've got now a Native American who's promoting health. And I just want to point out to you how important it is to recognise the relationship between land and health. There is now clear scientific and medical evidence linking Aboriginal people's health and their engagement in natural and cultural resource management. A study by the Menzies School of Health Research in collaboration with traditional owners of Western and Central Arnhem Land reported in 2007 that those engaged in natural and cultural resource management are significantly healthier overall. This includes significantly lower rates of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Participants in natural and cultural resource management report a more nutritious diet and a greater degree of healthy physical activity. Not so long ago, I spent some time with the Southern Tanami Indigenous Protected Area dedication. This is an area of 10 million hectares being looked after by the Warlpiri Rangers. And last week in the Kimberley, 4 new Indigenous protected areas were recognised. We think about that. I'm told now that there are 40 million hectares of IPA across this great country, representing 30% of our reserve system. I know what difference these make on the ground, and I'm proud that in the Northern Territory there are so many people engaged. I'm going to now talk about the Dimaroo Indigenous protected areas from North East Arnhem Land. Today I'm pleased to announce and recognise the Yolngu traditional owners that they held a ceremony on country last month. That ceremony was to dedicate 450,000 hectares of sea country to their IPA, which extends the boundary of this IPA 40 kilometres from the coast. Now, these people have been arguing for this a long time, and it's been a long time coming. But I want to acknowledge their leadership, their hard work and their determination to see this historic project come to fruition. I'd urge you to attend the historic launch of the plan of management for this new marine component of their IPA later today, after these events at about 5 o'clock. We support the traditional owners of this country to manage land and sea through a variety of other means. Community Environment Program grants help conserve land, water, native plants and animals. Indigenous Heritage grants help traditional owners identify, conserve and promote sacred sites. The Indigenous Carbon Farming Fund helps Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to help reduce carbon emissions, create jobs and tackle environmental issues. Some of the country's most famous national parks like Uluru, Katajuda and Kakadu are jointly managed with traditional owners. I'm especially proud of the Ranger Cadet programs. I just came across a statement from Senior Ranger Mervyn Raggett of Chiwampa Rangers in Central Australia's Ontario region, in which he said recently about these cadetships, we had one kid about 14 who was becoming a troublemaker. We took him out and with us for a week to do some burning that really changed him. As a global project, the World Indigenous Network will work to link Indigenous and local community land and sea management groups across the globe. We need an international organisation to drive the World Indigenous Network, and while one country may have started it, it's much bigger than only one country. We do need an international organisation that is already deeply involved in Indigenous issues, that has a strong global network and can hit the ground running. There is such an organisation that meets these requirements. So I'm pleased to announce today that the Secretariat for WIN will be handed over to the Equator Initiative, United Nations Development Program, from July in 2013, and that is a very significant win. Through their existing network, the Equator Initiative is already deeply involved in Indigenous issues. Pardon me. Currently, it is creating opportunities and platforms for sharing knowledge and good practice, recognising the success of local Indigenous initiatives and working to develop capacity. And through their founding organisation, UNDP, the Equator Initiative has already access to a network of almost 180 countries worldwide. The Equator Initiative has committed to taking the ideas you bring to the table over the next 3 days, those submitted through the scoping paper and online, into account as it builds an enduring world Indigenous network. I'm going to conclude now, but I just want to go back to where I started. It is truly a great honour for me as a Territorian, as a non-Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person, to be part of this great celebration. To humbly acknowledge your great wisdom in looking after country and looking after sea, and to recognise that you are crucial, fundamentally important to maintaining the integrity of our land and seas for generations to come. Thank you and enjoy the conference.